What's good, meaningful movers? Welcome back to Move With Me, the podcast where actions have meaning, words have meaning, and we open up the conversations to discover what's your next move. I'm your host, Krystal. Can I just say I am super excited? In today's episode, we are going to talk through some challenges. Not just any challenges, but those that are so similar to my own in spaces that are incredibly niche, but also quite common. Talk about an oxymoron. But you know how we do it here. We need to set that theme, so let's go ahead and do that. The word of the day is determination. This word has so much power in it. There is belief in oneself, and then there is a firmness in your purpose so strong that you don't even realize that you have it until you are going through something extremely difficult and have come out on the other end years down the road. Seriously, you ever found yourself looking back at all of those examples and experiences and say simply, wow, I made it through all of that? I think it is also important to recognize the responsibility of those times and create something inspirational, useful, and pay it forward. That's enough of me talking. How about we introduce our guest? There's no one better to do that than herself. Phebe, why don't you give the people a bit of background about yourself and what you're going to share with us today?
For sure. Well, absolutely. Thank you so much, Krystal, for having me. I was nodding my head as you're sharing that intro because it's so spot on. And I feel like as people, we need to sometimes just pause and realize that we have been through some stuff and we have made it out on the other side. And unfortunately, we're probably going to go through some more stuff, but we will be able to make it through. And I just think what you just shared is so spot on. And I want to encourage the listeners to just pat yourself on the back because you're here. You've made it this far and that deserves to be celebrated. Truly, truly does. So my name is Phebe Trotman. I am an entrepreneur, author based up in Vancouver, Canada. I'm also an athlete. Well, I still play soccer, but I'm a retired professional soccer player. I do still play, but retired from that level of competition. And just, I love to help and encourage and support people. And I'm just truly honored and grateful to be here with you today to just share some nuggets and have a great conversation.
I'm going to tell you something. You and I connect on a level too, because I'm also a soccer player. I don't meet other Black females that are soccer players to this extent. I am serious. This is so awesome right now for me. I don't know how you feeling, but I'm feeling good.
I love it. So, another footballer.
So I guess your soccer story has some inspiration about it. So tell me a little bit about that journey.
Yeah. So, I started playing when I was 5 years old. And it's interesting because a lot of times people will hear the accolades, because I've had a very successful career. I've won national championships on all levels and personal awards and whatnot. And people hear that and they kind of just think it's a smooth road, but it wasn't always a smooth road. I got cut from a team and I share that in the latest book that I wrote, how I was devastated and how that truly it rocked me. Yet my parents kind of had that tough love conversation and basically said, are you going to let one coach's decision determine your future? And what can you do? They put it back on me in terms of what I can control. And that was a powerful, profound lesson that I learned very early on. One of the lessons, though, that we're going to talk about is my red card story. Again, people hear, they see the accolades and whatnot. But you know what? I've learned a lot. And I remember I was 18, 19 years old. We're in British Columbia. We were playing in Quebec and we were playing Quebec in the semifinal for this national championship. And this one player just kept, great defender. She worked hard. I attack her. And she was elbowing and stepping and all this stuff was happening behind the scenes. And anyways, I wore contacts back then, lost a contact. So I was literally be able to see with one eye, which hindsight probably shouldn't have done what I did. Anyways, but I lost my cool. I really did. She just kept elbowing me. And I just pushed her back. Right? Not a bad push, just a little push off in her back. The linesman saw it, flagged it, ref came over, automatic red card, I'm ejected. And I'm devastated. And again, it was one of those hindsight lessons where it was I'm not going to let someone else's actions control how I respond to it. It was a tough lesson. Thankfully, my team is rock stars. We won that game. We ended up winning the national championship, but I had to watch that game because I wasn't able to play with that red card. And it did teach me a really powerful lesson that served me well in life, that other people, let them do them. We can choose how we respond to situations, whatever those situations are. And sometimes, even though really and truly that player should have never done what she was doing, still I had a choice and I reacted poorly to that. And then I served those consequences. And so, yeah, rough lesson, but I learned, again, soccer served me well in terms of learning a lot of life lessons from a very young age that's carried through.
Oh, good. And I really applaud your parents coaching you on how to navigate those waters of disappointment. That doesn't define who you are. I want to bring something up here because there is a difference for me in coaches. So I know that I'm great at soccer. Like, I could get on a team and maybe the coach doesn't believe in me as much as I know what I can produce. It doesn't impact my performance, right? Basketball, I'm good. I can play well, all that kind of stuff, but it was more recreational. But for me, my coach needed to believe in me for me to perform. It was so weird that how I felt about a sport, certain things inspired me to perform better under different circumstances and under different leadership. Did you experience something like that?
That's interesting, because as you're saying that, I'm kind of like, I'm reflecting in terms of the playing sports. And typically, belief it's one of those things where I believe in myself and my abilities and what I'm capable of. That being said, when I have a coach who also believes in what I can do, to me, it just elevates it. If I have a coach who doesn't, I'm still going to go show my stuff. That being said, I definitely thrived in those environments where the coach also supported. And one of the things that I would just encourage people to do, because you have to find that confidence. And I have had coaches, though, who haven't, and I had to dig deep. And part of it is, though, I find the work that we do off the field. And when I say off the field, I mean not in a scheduled session, your own practices, taking a ball to the park and playing or doing sprints or going to the gym. That helped me with my confidence and my belief because I knew I was putting in the work. So even if I had a coach who didn't fully I was going to show them because I knew how hard I was working. And that was part of a lesson. Again, when I didn't make that team, my parents were like, well, what can you control? And part of what I can control is my effort, my attitude, my determination, my focus, my belief, all that is what I can control. And so when I started putting in the work off the field, then that helped with my confidence and belief in myself as well, too.
Guys, that right there, that's why you invest in coaching, is a lot to do with yourself, right? It's the commitment of you putting in the work. So I really appreciate you sharing that with me. Now, we've gone past the red card, right? We got our lessons from that. We hit the workforce, right? We hit corporate arena. You had another testament of a red card form there, right? In this case, it was more or less being laid off.
Yeah.
How was this lesson?
So it's interesting how life can just move, right? And as we said, but in the start, what you talked about, I was nodding my head because we all go through challenges. And even if someone's listening and you haven't been laid off, there's something you can relate to in the fact that life moved in a different direction than you had planned. And so I've been working at a computer company. I didn't really love what I did. However, it was paid the bills and I was working on some side projects at the time. Anyhow, and my whole plan was like, okay, I'm building these side businesses. And once the income from these side businesses is enough, then I'm going to leave this job. But for right now, it's great. Again, it pays the bills. I had a lot of downtime when I was at work, so I could work on my side projects. And all of it was going well. Again, I had this plan in my head. And unfortunately, the company ended up going bankrupt and I was laid off. And when I was laid off, it was like a roller coaster of emotions. It was like, on the one hand, I was excited. I was like, I don't have to go to work. Yay. On the other hand, I got bills to pay. Uh-oh. You go through all these emotions. And so because I had these side projects and I could go in different directions, I really took a moment to just pause. And I encourage people listening in to just, wherever you are in life, just, sometimes we need those pauses to kind of just go, okay, well, what do I want my life to look like? And in that pause, I sort of looked forward 3, 5, 10 years and was like, what do I want my life to look like? What do I really want to do? And I knew I wanted to have control of my time, to be able to be there for friends, family, etc., and, just enjoy life, if you will. And so I paused with it. And even though I had different options, I chose to build an online business. I had started using doing this service for one of the side projects that I'd done, and there was a income opportunity attached to it. So I decided to build that because I knew it would allow me to kind of have that flexibility in terms of where I could travel, where I could work from. I could set my own schedule. And so I was able to do that. And I do encourage people, even regardless of where you're at right now, kind of pause and look forward and be like, what do I want my life to look like? And since doing that, that's over 20 years ago now, I've elevated it. I work on something called my dream day. And that's really just an activity where you kind of, again, it's like looking forward for your life. And it's like, what would a dream day look like for you? And we can talk a bit more about that, but it's such a powerful exercise because it gives you something to work towards, and it allows you to kind of navigate through tough times when those happen because you know where you're headed.
Oh, yeah. I relate to this too, because I was laid off as well under similar circumstances. It was the roller coaster of emotions because I was like, I don't feel like I'm hurt, right? Because I have some time. But then after a while, I was like, well, why they chose me over all these other people, right? You start to get in your head a little bit and start to play around. And you're right. You do have this time. This is what, like, a blessing of what you didn't have before because you were maybe distracted. This is like really a gift that you're given, even though it's a challenge that you're going to go through. Oh my God, I can't believe you said that. And I was just thinking back to that moment. And it was like 20 years ago too. I was young, so I was inexperienced in how to deal with that. If you ask somebody else who had experienced that, it would have probably been something they were like, oh, you're just going to do this, whatever. And I'm like, man, it don't feel like it's going to be like that easy.
Mm-hmm.
And you really do come out of that on the other end, and you really look back and you're like, I really did the dang thing. I really made something happen in a space where I felt like I had nothing.
Yes. And as you said, though, finding the gift in that, right? And that's one of the things that I just encourage. And I've been working on this for so many years is even in the challenges, what is the gift in that? Like, what can you find to be grateful for, right? In this case, being laid off, yeah, you go through all these emotions, but you have the gift of time in some ways. So what can you do with that? And throughout the challenges that we experienced, that red card, it was horrible watching my team play, especially because it was like, I'm part of this team and I had to watch. But the gift of that is I learned that I'm not going to let someone else's actions control my response. I can choose how I'm going to respond to that, right? Not making that team at under 13, I was devastated. I cried and cried and cried. However, the gift in that is, my parents with that lesson, and that I realized that I can control I decided, hey, any team that I'm going to be on, I'm going to be an impact player. They're going to know, it's not going to be a question, do we want Phebe Trotman on the team? It's going to be a check, she's on the team, because I'm going to put in the work. So there's always gifts in it. And we're covering some of those things, but there's other heavier things too, that there are still gifts in those experiences.
Yes. And at an early age too. Oh man, and it carries on. It carries forward because you're like, this ain't going to be the first one, baby. You're going to have to get used to disappointments, but it's always about moving forward. Now, here's one question I wanted to ask you. It's so interesting because when I was in that particular job that I was in before I got laid off, I was thinking, I'm going to do other stuff. I'm going to do this. Like what you were doing, right? You had the side things of what you were doing. And I thought about it and I said, man, I would have never left that job to go and do all these things that I said I was going to go do, that I was preparing in while this free time while I was working. I literally had to have something happen for me to get out of that space, to open my eyes up and say, now you can go do it. Now you can do it because you were stuck here.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And so it's a gift of space, but it's also a gift of being released from something that was holding you in place as well.
Absolutely. I remember hearing this. It was something along I'm paraphrasing, but basically, sometimes if we don't make a move, God makes that move for us. And it is just like, I'm with you. I don't really know. Would I have left even though I wasn't happy at the position I was at, would I have actually left when I could work on all my side projects while I was there? I'm getting this paycheck. It's comfortable. It's what everybody has a job. This is what we do, all these things. I don't know if I would have. I mean, eventually, once the income, but would I have worked as hard on those side projects to get the income I don't know, right? So, and that's why I say there's gifts in all of it, because we can look back and just look at what has happened. And even when we look at those challenging times, I mean, when we were talking about what you said at the beginning, we've all been through some stuff. Congratulate yourself that you've made it through this, because it has strengthened you and prepared you for what the future may hold in terms of navigating other challenges.
Yeah, 100%. before I jump into your book, because we got to get there, because it's just awesome. One thing that I wanted to share was with my husband. He was in a similar position, but this time he wasn't laid off. He had to make a choice to quit because he was just like, you know how you find these people and, you know, you talk to someone, they're like always complaining about their job. And I'm like, just leave. Like, you know, and he was always complaining. And I was like, what's wrong with leaving and going off on your own? Well, you know, and you could come up with all of the bad from leaving. And so I said, okay, now tell me what's good about leaving. What can you do that this job is holding you on from, right? And then hopefully you can name it. But he named them. I said, so you mean tell me that you can run your team, you can build your own brand, you can meet all OSHA standards, whatever it is, what he does, you know, which is great, and do all the things right that these people are doing wrong, and you can have control over that, and you're going to sit here and stay? I said, it's something called stepping out on faith.
Absolutely.
You know, and then he would complain, and I'd stop talking, and then I said, you know, you're not tired yet. And he said, why? Why you say that? I said, because you're still there. I said, because when you're tired, you will leave and not have nothing in hand and then watch God work. Absolutely. And I'm telling you, in less than a year, he had built up his own practice and everything else. And he said, I'll never work for anybody else again. It's amazing. Amazing.
That's stepping out on faith, right? It's something you just got to take the first step. You have to take the first step and then continue taking steps forward. And a lot of times that's when we start to see clearly, because we're out of that box, if you will, and you're able to start seeing things in a different way. And again, you grow, you start to learn, and you grow to that level that you need to be at.
Yep. All right. We gonna get off my soapbox. Okay. So you have a book out. Is that right?
I actually have two now. Well, two. Yes, I have two. Lord. Yes. But yes, let's talk about the books, because it's a series, so it's all connected.
Well, tell me about it. Because we got the inspiration. We set the backstory. Tell me what these books are.
Yeah. So the name of the book series is Never Quit on a Bad Day: Inspiring Stories of Resilience. And the first book came out in July, and then the second book just recently came out in the series. And really, it's a book to, as we're talking about, we all go through challenging times. And one of the reasons, the inspiration behind the book, really, I was telling some friends of mine that I wanted to create something to help and encourage and inspire people. And they're the ones actually who suggested to write a book. And I kind of paused, I hesitated a little bit. I was like, a book? I don't know. Like, it really wasn't kind of a life goal, if you will. And this is why it's so important who you surround yourself with, because these two dear friends, they reminded me that a book wasn't about me. It really was about the people it could help. And when they said it in that way, that's what opened me up to stepping forward. And I knew if I was going to write a book, had to do two things. It had to help and inspire people. And I also had to feel, second thing, I had to feel passionate about what I was writing about. And the month before, I had incredible honor. I was inducted into the Coquitlam Sports Hall of Fame, and we had this kind of interview and induction event. And the interviewer asked me, what has sport given me? And I shared a lot of the life lessons, the incredible highs. And I also shared, though, that the only reason I was able to have these highs was because of the lows, the tough stuff, and pushing through and keep going, keep showing up, keep doing the work. And so when I was simmering on this book idea, I remembered that. And then that's when I was like, that's what I want to write a book about. I want to write a book that shares short stories of people who have been through some stuff, but more importantly, what did they do to push through it? So sharing some of the tips, strategies, if you will, concepts to help that help them move through it, that can help the reader move through it as well too.
That's nice. I think short stories are just awesome because it's so many different perspectives. It just peeks into everyone's world and it hones in and focuses on that moment. You can see the rising action, the climax, and then, you see the moral. And I love that. And the fact that it's like a series. Oh, I get more of these little things, these little gems coming on. Okay.
Krystal, as you said with your husband, like sometimes you just got to step out in faith, because I have a lot of goals. As I said, I have my dream day all written out, and a book wasn't necessarily on those life goals. However, when I started with the idea, I just started getting so excited about it. And here's again how God moves, because I always say I have this open the door, close the door thing with God. So I'm like, okay, I like this saying, never quit on a bad day. I heard it many, many years ago. It stuck with me. It's kind of a life philosophy, if you will. And so I was like, okay, God, open the door. That URL will be available. Then I know you're saying step through it, keep going. And if it's not available, then either it's maybe the book isn't the right way or a different name. And so I came home, I, looked it up, it was available. So I purchased it. And then it was like, oh, okay. And then I started getting excited. And then I still had that chatter. What do I know about writing a book? I've never written a book, all that stuff, which I've learned how to quiet that and really get comfortable being uncomfortable. And then as I started simmering on the series, I was like, the book, because originally it was just going to be one book. Then I was like, this is bigger than one book, because there's so many people that have just inspired me along my journey in terms of as an entrepreneur and an investor, and then as an athlete. And so the first book features stories from thriving entrepreneurs. And the second book, which just came out, it features stories from accomplished athletes. And I want the listeners to understand, it's not about, are you an entrepreneur? So get this book. Are you an athlete? Get this book. Because there's parallels. It's really just a story. And it's so interesting because all the contributors, I kept it very open. And some of the stories have to do with the athletes, has to do with the sport. Some of them don't, because it's everyone's own definition of what was a bad day. Like, what did a bad day or season or moment look like for that person, and how did they work through it?
Ooh. And you're right. It's going to relate to many people, many people. That's so awesome that you gathered that many perspectives. And for anybody to touch that, it's awesome because it's so relatable. You could pick up that book and let's say I read all of them. I may hit every one of these bad days.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go right back to that book and say, what did they do on this day? Because I need some help to get through this. That's so cool. I want to go back to what you said. Surrounding yourself with positive people or like-minded individuals. That is so key, isn't it?
It is so important. I've realized over the years. So I like to say people can be engines or anchors, and depending on what it is you're doing. So be careful who you share your dreams with, your goals with, because if it's an engine, they're going to help move you towards it. They will, give you positive reinforcement, encouragement. Yes, Krystal, great idea, Krystal. Move forward. Have you thought about this, Krystal? Hey, how about this person can help you? They're going to propel it forward. Then unfortunately, there's some people, and it could be a great friend, could be a, family member that might be more of an anchor. And it's going to be like, well, Krystal, do you really, and they kind of pull you down. They're not helping you move forward. And so I'm just so grateful. And I like for all the engines that I have in my life, because I think back to that conversation with those two friends who are absolutely engines. It could have gone a completely different way. And, one of them might have suggest write a book. And the other one might be like, well, do you know how to write a book? Have you ever written a book? What do you know about writing? All these questions that are legitimate questions. But in that moment, when it's just a seed of an idea, that's not really the time you want someone, crushing that idea, if you will, right? So it's just important. And I think as people, when we're blessed to have these engines in our life, we need to love on them. We need to reach out and tell them how much we value them and how grateful we are for them. And if you're listening, you don't have engines right now in your life, that's okay too. Then I just encourage people to, in this next season, be intentional about finding engines. But number one, be intentional about being an engine to someone else first. Because when you are an engine for someone else and other people, you're naturally going to start attracting those engines into you as well.
Ooh, that was good. I didn't expect that one. It's true. Yeah. I'm totally into this and I'm just nodding and I am thinking of something right now where I was like, I felt I was an engine for somebody else and that wasn't reciprocated back to me. Mm-hmm. It wasn't necessarily that they were an anchor. I wasn't getting from them what I needed, right? And it didn't mean that they weren't giving me valuable input. I don't know. I guess at that time, it probably didn't fuel me at that moment. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean that they're not engines, right? It's just either they're giving you really profound advice and promoting yourself very well. You may not just be at that stage to receive that information. So you mistake it for something else, right?
That's a great point. Yeah, that's a very good point. And not all the time too. So depending, you might be, as you just shared, you might be an engine for someone else. They might not be your engine. And that's okay. It's just important to have, again, it depends what you're sharing with someone, right? And I say this, in the first book, one of the activities I have people do is who are your go-to people on a personal level? And who are your go-to people on a professional level? Because they might not be the same person. Like there might not be the same people, because if you might have an amazing friend who for relationships and for just, someone you love and you have a great time together, yet maybe they're not an entrepreneur. So when you share an entrepreneurial challenge that you're going through, they may be like, you know what, Phoebe, just go get a job. Like, why are you stressing on this? And it's not bad advice. It's just that's within their frame of reference. So again, you want to choose who you go share certain information with. In the first book, I share a story, and had I gone to some of my amazing, incredible personal friends, they would have for sure said, you know what, that's not right. That's not fair. How they treated you, which is okay. That's actually correct. However, I went to someone who's professional, and she said, that's not fair. That's not right. You're Phebe Trotman. You're going to go back out and crush this goal. So again, because she's gone through professional challenges, she realizes that sometimes things aren't going to be as fair as you would like. But at the end of the day, what do you want out of it? So you might have to go back to work. And that's exactly what she said. And I'm so grateful she did, because that's exactly what I did. So I encourage people, like, again, know who are your like professional engines, if you will, your personal engines, people, because depending what you're sharing with them, it can move you forward or it might keep you in place, right? You just said with your husband, you were an engine for him. You gave him those questions like, well, hold on, what's keeping you here? What about if you go over here? Asking that versus someone else might have just been like, okay, well, just ride it out. Right? Just stay then. So it's really important, again, who we share our goals with, our dreams with, what our struggles with, even to help us really move forward. And community is massive. Our network is so important. So I just encourage people to be very intentional who you surround yourself with, and very careful of who you share your time with, because time is precious and a gift.
Ooh, wait. This was a great episode. I'm so sorry. This is good. This is good. I got so much more out of this. Not that I was anticipating getting less. I knew we were kindred spirits.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to tell you, Phoebe. Yeah. So you offered such an enormous amount of information to us today and inspiration. Do you have any golden nuggets that you want to add some catch up just to recap?
I'd like to, yes, one of the golden nuggets is about gratitude. I want to encourage people. Something I did many years ago when I was going through, like, my business was not growing. I was frustrated. I was just like, oh my gosh. Yeah, it's in some ways, it would be easier to just go get a job, like all these thoughts. I always was a grateful person to an extent, if you will. However, I got really intentional, and I want to encourage people to do this. It's a simple little challenge, but it is powerful, is to set like an event in your phone. So mine is 9:10 p.m. Pacific every single day. It pops up in my phone. It's an event, and it says, I'm so happy and grateful that. That's all it says. And so every single day at 9:10 p.m. Pacific, and this is when things were very challenging, this reminder would pop up, and it just forced me to pause. And I'd be like, okay, what am I grateful for? And I would just go through something. Sometimes it'd be literally like 10 seconds. Sometimes it might be 15 minutes, right? Depending where I'm at and whatnot. And now I wake up and I have gratitude practice throughout the day. I've been able to reframe situations. However, in the beginning, I wasn't that person, and having that calendar, that event with myself forced me to do it. So I want to encourage people to do it. Set it at whatever time of day is best for you. However, take it seriously, because, some people minimize gratitude, but it will transform you, especially because it allows you to just shift your perspective. And sometimes that's all we need to get an idea, to have that clarity to move forward from where we are.
I like that. Making gratitude familiar territory. That's the episode today. We've all been down on our luck in one way or another, to varying extremes even. I hope Phoebe's Dream Day and Workbook of Strategies has found its way to you. Be mindful not to get too prideful, and learn some valuable lessons from those experiences, because what's for sure is it's easy to be reminded of what bad looks and feels like. That's why I appreciate Phoebe sharing her vulnerability and how she has evolved that into purposeful and intentional living strategies to never quit on a bad day. Yes, she has transformed her mantra into a book series of the same title. Look it up and give those books a read. Even if you have made it to the light at the end of the tunnel, who's to say if another one doesn't lay ahead? I want to hear your stories of never quitting and how you keep living your dream day. I love it all, and so will someone else. Before I let you go, Phoebe, why don't you go ahead and remind the people who you are where they can find your resources or reach out to you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Krystal. So again, my name is Phebe Trotman and my website is neverquitonabadday.com. And I'm available as well on Facebook and Instagram, and it's Never Quit on a Bad Day.
Awesome. I'm connecting with her. I don't know about y'all, but it's out there. I'll make sure to include all of Phoebe's resources and connections in the episode description, as well as on my website's resources page, movingwithmeaning.com. Make sure you guys subscribe to the show, Moving With Meaning the podcast, and tap that alert bell so you know when these episodes drop. I'm on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, and YouTube Music. Please share, like, repost, and follow. Tag someone. We are creating a community. Quick housekeeping before you go. Follow me on Instagram at movingwithmeaning82. Also connect with me on LinkedIn. I do dabble in TikTok at Krystal B. Clark. My YouTube channel is up. Kindly run over there and have a look or two. Links are in the episode. Alrighty. I'm Krystal on Moving With Meaning the podcast, reminding you to take it one step at a time. All moves have meaning. Check y'all later.